What if you want to buy the best CPU air cooler on the market, no matter the cost, but you're not sure which one to buy? What's the best high-end air cooler? That's the question this video aims to answer. I've taken 10 of the best and newest high-end air coolers on the market right now, analyzed, tested, and compared them, and then come to a conclusion on which high-end air cooler is the best you can buy right now. If you just want to know which coolers are the best and buy them, check the links in the description. And if you'd like to skip to any section of this video, you can use the timestamps at the bottom of the description. I do recommend watching this whole video though, because you'll get to see all the pros and cons of each cooler and make the right cooler choice for your system. This is the second video I've made on high-end air coolers, but you don't need to watch the first video because this one is pretty much better than it in every way. This video contains 3 returning champions, 2 fan favorites, and 5 all-new coolers that I've never tested before. I also have an all-new performance test procedure that is even more accurate than my last test. Now let's introduce all 10 of today's contestants. First, the 3 returning champions. The NHD15S by Noctua, the Dark Rock Pro 4 by Be Quiet, and the Assassin 3 by Deep Cool. These coolers won my recommendation in previous videos, but let's see how they stack up to the new coolers today. We also have 2 returning fan favorites, the Le Grand Macho RT by Thermalright and the NHU12A by Noctua. These coolers weren't quite good enough to earn my recommendation, but I wanted to test them again just to be sure, because I know a lot of people like these coolers. Lastly, we have the 5 newcomers, the NHD15 chromax.black by Noctua, the R1 Ultimate by CryoRig, the CNPS20X by Zalman, the A500 by Corsair, and the Master Air MA620M by Cooler Master. I'm very excited to see how these new coolers stack up to the competition, so let's get right into analyzing and testing them. The first thing we're going to look at is price. While price is not going to be a huge factor in this competition, because we're looking at the best coolers here, regardless of price, it is still important if one cooler performs better than the other and has an even lower price. It's always nice to save some money even if you're buying high-end products. In this graph we have the regular US Amazon prices of these coolers, rounded to the nearest dollar. We can see the NHD15S and the Le Grand Macho RT are both relatively cheap here compared to the others, taking a $20 lead over a lot of these. The R1 Ultimate, the Dark Rock Pro 4, and the Assassin 3 all come in around the middle of the pack. Then the NHU12A, the NHD15 chromax.black, the Master Air MA620M, the CNPS20X, and the A500 all hit that $100 price point. The interesting thing is seeing how price affects performance. In my last high-end cooler video, the most expensive cooler was actually the worst. But let's continue analyzing and testing these coolers to see if that still applies. The next thing I'm going to be looking at is the compatibility of these coolers. Will they actually fit in your system? High-end air coolers tend to be huge, so compatibility can be a major concern. You have to make sure that your case, your motherboard, and your RAM can all fit nicely with them. To analyze compatibility, I've used PC Part Picker's database to figure out how many cases and motherboards are compatible with each cooler. I've also taken the maximum RAM height each cooler can handle into account. We can see the Le Grand Macho RT and the NHU12A are both compatibility powerhouses. They have good case and motherboard compatibility and unlimited RAM height clearance. Next, the NHD15S has quite good compatibility, but does have a RAM height limit, even though it's quite a lot of space. Then the Master Air MA620M has bad case compatibility due to its tall height, but good motherboard compatibility and very decent RAM height limits. Then the Assassin 3 and the Dark Rock Pro 4 come in here near the middle of the pack. Then the CNPS20X and the NHD15 chromax.black are getting down near the bottom of the list, both with low case compatibility and minimal RAM clearance. Finally, the R1 Ultimate and the A500 both have very poor compatibility due to their extremely tall height and limited RAM clearance. Now let's look at how easy it is to install these coolers. Installing a CPU cooler can be one of the most difficult parts of any PC build, so it's always nice to have an easier installation if possible. After installing all of them, I've ranked them here from easiest to hardest. First, the MA620M, the NHD15S, and the NHU12A are all as easy as it's going to get for a CPU cooler. No major issues and a minimal number of steps to install. Next, the A500, the Assassin 3, the Legrand Macho RT, and the NHD15 chromax.black all come in around moderate installation difficulty. These aren't too hard to install, but they all have a few issues, like some extra installation steps, or being quite large, making it difficult to work around them. Finally, the CNPS-20X, the Darkrock Pro 4, and the R1 Ultimate all have some major issues that make them difficult to install. The CNPS-20X has lots of extra steps, and the middle fan can get stuck during installation. The Darkrock Pro 4 has an extremely difficult middle fan installation that means you'll probably want to remove your motherboard just to install it. The R1 Ultimate is plagued by a ton of installation issues, such as poor instructions, some loose plastic washers, and screws that don't quite line up right. Now let's take a good look at the appearance of these coolers. If you're spending a lot of money on a high-end CPU cooler, it's always nice to have it perform well and look good too. Appearance is very subjective and is going to depend a lot on the color theme of your build, but here I've ranked these coolers from best looking to worst looking in my own personal opinion. I'll give you a good look at each one so you can make your own decision as well. First off, my favorite looking cooler of the bunch by far is the CNPS-20X. It has an absolutely striking appearance with its X-shaped RGB lighting on the front of its fans and thin silver heatsink fins with a touch of copper in the middle. Note that the RGB lighting requires a motherboard with RGB support and can be customized in any color you want using your motherboard's RGB software. Next is the Master Air MA620M, another RGB cooler. It has a super clean minimalist design with slightly different shades of black along with the RGB lit lines along the top. It just looks great and can be customized to fit any color scheme. And now for my favorite of the non-RGB coolers, the Assassin 3. I just love the reflective silver and black color scheme of this cooler, and the textured fans look great too. Note that I put the silver face stickers on a bit lopsided when I first installed this thing, but you should be able to get them lined up right if you take your time and don't rush like I did. Now another favorite of mine, the Darkrock Pro 4. It has a mostly black look with an orange accent on the fan and a cool industrial design. It fits very well with most builds, and the orange fits the default color of my Gigabyte motherboard perfectly. Next is the Legrand Macho RT. This has a very unique design, with an offset placement allowing you to have full view of your RAM. It has a cool black cover on the heatsink and a nice black and white fan with green accent in the middle. Next is the R1 Ultimate. This has a very interesting design, with black heatsink covers and gray fans, with logos on top of both. The fans also have a rainbow color in the middle. Overall pretty pleasing to the eye, but I do think the gray and rainbow can clash a bit with some systems. Next is the A500. This has another unique design, with the heatsink completely hidden by a bronze cover, and black and white fans on both ends. The Corsair Sales logo in the middle is a nice touch. The cooler looks very classy, but the bronze color can look a bit out of place, and the whole design is quite large, blocking out the rest of your system. Now we're getting to the bottom of the appearance list with the 3 Noctua coolers. Noctua is not known for their appearance, but they've started to make some black colored products, and the NHD15 chromax.black here is one of them. It's definitely an improvement from their normal brown color, but it has a glaring issue with these strange white characters on top of the fans that make it look a bit cheap. The all-black design is also a bit plain, and could use some different accent colors to mix things up a bit. Now here is a classic brown colored Noctua cooler, the NHU12A. The NHU12A looks classy in its own way, but the brown really clashes with the color scheme of most builds, making it a bit of an eyesore. One nice thing though is it's so small that you can see all 4 of your RAM sticks. And finally, the worst looking cooler of the bunch, in my opinion, is the NHD15S. It's got those Noctua brown fans that again don't really fit in any color scheme, and it just looks kinda goofy with its single fan in the middle. Now we're almost to what you've all been waiting for, the performance results. But first I'd like to go over my test procedure to show you how I tested these coolers. This is going to get a bit technical, so feel free to skip to the performance section using the timestamps at the bottom of the description if you're not interested in all the ins and outs of the test procedure. I've been developing my cooling tests over many years now, after being frustrated with poor cooling tests in other reviews. I do a lot of little things that make my tests much more accurate, comprehensive, and real-world based than others. Let's get right into the details. I tested all of these coolers in my real-world test system, a fractal design Define S2 case with the Gigabyte Z390 Pro motherboard, an Intel i7-9700K processor, and a fanless power supply to make sure the power supply fan doesn't interfere with the tests. I also am using an MSI GTX 1060, but it's only used in this test to make sure the test system has a real-world layout. All case fans are locked to 50% speed, and in their default positions, except for the back case fan, which I moved down a bit so it lines up with the CPU better. I also am using the mesh top on the Define S2 because I need it open to do my liquid cooler tests. Be sure you're subscribed to see those coming soon. I use a reusable graphite thermal pad instead of thermal paste to make sure there is no variation in spread of thermal paste between tests. I test each cooler at 5 different equally distributed fan speed levels, from lowest to highest. For example, 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, and 100%. This allows me to show how the cooler performs over the full range of its capability. For the noise tests, I place the test system in a quiet closet with my noise meter that takes into account the way the human ear perceives sound by measuring A-weighted decibels instead of normal decibels. For each fan speed, I record noise levels for 1 minute and then take the lowest reading. For the temperature tests, I keep the system in the closet, but with the door wide open for normal air circulation. To set how much heat I want produced for each test, I use Intel XTU software to set CPU power limits, in this case 95 watts for my first test and 185 watts for my second test. For each fan speed, I run a Prime 95 stress test for 5 minutes and then record the highest CPU core temperature. I normalize all temperatures to 24 Celsius ambient to account for any changing ambient temperatures in the environment. Then I take those noise and temperature results for each fan speed and graph them, connecting the points, giving a great visualization of how each cooler performs over the full range of its capability. Here's the performance graph for 95 watts of CPU heat. 95 watts is a good max amount of heat that the average user could see during use. This graph may look a bit complicated at first, but it's easy to understand once you get the golden rule. Lower is better. We want lower temperatures and lower noise, so the lines that are closest to this lower left corner are the best. I've ranked each cooler here according to its overall performance. We can see the NHD15 chromax.black, conveniently colored in black here, and the Dark-Rock Pro 4 in green are the clear winners. The NHD15 chromax.black has the lowest temperatures at almost all noise levels, while the Dark-Rock Pro 4 has very similar performance, but a lower range, meaning it can't get quite as cool at higher speeds, but it maintains extremely low temperatures even at its lowest speed, and it never gets loud no matter how high you turn up its fans. Be Quiet is living up to their name very well here. Coming in a close second place is the NHD15S in red. It has a very similar noise temperature curve to the NHD15 chromax.black, but can't get quite as cool, but it also doesn't get quite as loud at high speeds. Third place is the Assassin 3 in blue. It performs very similar to a lot of these other coolers in the middle here, where all the lines come together, but it has notably excellent low speed performance, where it stays nice and cool compared to others that get much hotter. It does get a bit loud at high speeds without much change in temperature, so you may want to limit its fan speed to around 80% for best results. In fourth place we have the NHU12A and the A500. The NHU12A here in pink has decent temperatures, coming in around the middle of the pack, and it doesn't get too loud even at its highest speeds. However, its temperature at its lowest speeds are the worst of all of these, most likely due to its much smaller heatsink than the rest of these larger coolers. The A500 in dark red here has okay performance, coming in around the middle of the pack too, and is actually able to achieve the lowest temperatures of all of them at its highest speed, but at the cost of incredibly high noise levels, so not really worth it unless you don't mind your computer sounding like a jet engine. This cooler uses the same ML120 fans I reviewed in my last fan video, and we can see they perform the same here, extremely loud at their highest speeds. In fifth place is the CNPS-20X in white. It's able to achieve very decent temperatures, coming in around the middle of the pack, but its noise levels leave a lot to be desired. It gets extremely loud at high speeds, and it can't get quite as quiet at low speeds as the rest of these coolers. It also has a very annoying signature to its noise where the thin heatsink fins rattle as the air flows through them, making it quite unpleasant to listen to. Coming in near the end of the pack, in 6th place we have the Legrand Macho RT in yellow. It just can't get quite as cool as most of these coolers, but it also never gets loud even at its highest fan speeds, which is nice. In 7th we have the R1 Ultimate in light blue. It gets quite a bit hotter than the rest of the pack and gets pretty darn loud at high speeds too. And finally, in dead last, we have the Master Air MA620M. It's just way hotter than the rest of these coolers, and its noise performance is only mediocre. We saw a similar showing from the other Cooler Master cooler I reviewed in my last high-end air cooler video, so this seems to be a bit of a pattern with Cooler Master here, and they definitely are not living up to their name. Now let's take a look at how these coolers perform at very high heat levels, 185 watts. This amount of heat is only achievable if you have a high-end CPU and do some intense stuff with it like video encoding, rendering, or overclocking. But if you're buying a high-end cooler, you're much more likely to be doing power user activities like this, so it is important to see how these coolers can handle this high heat. Note that most of these coolers overheated the CPU at their lower fan speeds, so those lower fan speed points have been omitted. Coming in a clear first place is the NH-D15 chromax.black, colored in black here. There is no other cooler here that can achieve temperatures as low as the NH-D15 chromax.black, and it does so with very reasonable noise levels as well. Right behind it is its high compatibility sibling, the NH-D15S in red. It performs similarly to the NH-D15 chromax.black, but it doesn't have quite as much high-end range, so it can't get quite as cool. In 3rd place is a three-way tie between the Dark Rock Pro 4, the NH-U12A, and the Assassin 3. The Dark Rock Pro 4 in green has amazingly low noise levels and very decent temperatures, but lacks high-end range to get as low temperatures as the top coolers. The NH-U12A performs surprisingly well here for its size. It has very decent temperatures and noise, but it gets quite hot at lower fan speeds. The Assassin 3 in blue comes in around the middle of the pack overall, except at lower fan speeds where it has extremely good temperatures and maintains great low noise levels. In 4th place is the CNPS-20X in white. It can't get quite as cool as most of these, and its noise levels leave a lot to be desired. In 5th place is the Legrand Macho RT. It really struggles to cool this amount of heat, getting quite hot at lower speeds and failing to cool much at higher speeds as well. It does of course still have extremely low noise, which is nice, but not much of a consolation when it's not cooling well. Nearing the end of the pack we have the A500 in 6th place in dark red. It just has a pretty poor noise temperature curve here overall, and gets ridiculously loud at high speeds without even dropping the temperature much at all. In 7th place, and the last cooler pictured on this graph, we have the R1 Ultimate in light blue. Just a very poor showing here with much hotter temperatures than the rest of them. And finally, in 8th place, the Master Air MA620M, which was so bad it overheated at all fan speeds, so couldn't even be pictured on this graph. Not exactly what I would call a cooler master. Now we're almost to the conclusion of this review, but let's look at one last aspect of these coolers, their warranty. If you're buying a big expensive high-end cooler, it's always nice to know that it will be covered against any failures for a long time. Also, warranty length generally shows how confident the manufacturer is in the longevity of their product, so it can be a good indicator overall of how long the manufacturer expects it to last. First, all 3 Noctua coolers have 6-year warranties, which is quite nice. The R1 Ultimate does as well. The Master Air MA620M, Assassin 3, and A500 all have 5-year warranties, which is very respectable. Then the Dark Rock Pro 4 comes in at 3 years, which is not bad, but it would be nice if it was longer for a bit more peace of mind. Then the Legrand Macho RT comes in at 2 years, which is not so great. Then the CNPS-20X comes in at only 1 year, which is kind of disturbing for such an expensive, complicated product with RGB lights like the CNPS-20X. Not a great sign of longevity for the CNPS-20X. So now we've come to the end of this review, and it's time to make the most important decision of all. Which of these coolers are actually worth buying, and which one is the very best? First, I'm going to give some runner-up awards to coolers that aren't quite the best, but are actually very good in their own way, and even have a few advantages over my top pick in certain ways. Runner-up award for the most well-rounded high-end air cooler goes to the Assassin 3 by Deepcool. The Assassin 3 is just an amazingly well-balanced high-end cooler with no significant downsides. It consistently ranked near the middle top of all categories, which is quite an achievement. It's a jack of all trades, but a master of none, so it's not quite the very best in any category, but it's always near the top, so I'd have no problem recommending it to anyone because it has no major issues at all. Runner-up award for the best high-end air cooler with high compatibility goes to the NHD15S by Noctua. The NHD15S has an amazing combination of great performance and quite good compatibility for a high-end cooler. This award could have gone to Noctua's other high compatibility cooler, the NHU12A, but the NHD15S performs quite a bit better with almost as good compatibility and a significantly lower price. This cooler does have the signature Noctua brown color, which can be a turnoff for some, so it's not for those who care a lot about appearance, but it's great for those who want compatibility, price, and performance all in one. Runner-up award for the quietest high-end air cooler with great cooling goes to the Dark Rock Pro 4 by Be Quiet. Be Quiet is definitely living up to their name here, with the Dark Rock Pro 4 staying quiet even at its highest fan speeds, while maintaining great temperatures as well. It does have a very difficult installation, and the warranty is a bit shorter than the others, but it performs so damn well and looks great too, so it's easy to overlook those smaller issues. And now the grand prize award for best high-end air cooler goes to the NHD15 chromax.black by Noctua. The NHD15 chromax.black is the #1 winner of my performance tests, and when it comes down to it, that's what really matters the most in a cooler. The best cooler is the one that cools the most. It also maintains very respectable noise levels while achieving those leading low temperatures. Noctua has done away with their brown color for this cooler, which is quite an improvement, although it still has some appearance issues like the white characters on top of the fans. Its compatibility also isn't great due to its large size. These issues are really minor though compared to what matters most. The NHD15 chromax.black's cooling capacity is simply unmatched, especially at high heat levels where it blows away the competition. However, if you're looking for a cooler with slightly different priorities, all of my runner-up winners cover some of the deficiencies of the NHD15 chromax.black and are great alternatives to this top pick if you'd like to go in a slightly different direction. In the end, all of the runner-up winners and my grand prize winner are going to get my highly recommended award. All of these coolers are quite great, and I would have no problem recommending them. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, be sure to hit the thumbs up, leave a comment, and hit subscribe to see more computer part reviews coming soon. If you really want to help out, hit the share button to share this video with others on places like Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, forums, and other social media. I'm a small YouTuber, so every share helps a lot. I hope this video helped you make better consumer decisions. See you next time.